started. There were some technical difficulties with folks joining the WebEx. So let's give them a couple of minutes and we're good on time. Thanks so much for joining us. Why don't we go ahead? Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us for Investment Connection New Mexico. This is the second year we've held virtual sessions for Investment Connection. Some of you may recall our Investment Connection response to COVID-19 sessions in May 2020, when we were in a very dark place with the pandemic and economic crisis. Of course, our low and moderate income communities have not recovered and have not recovered fully from the previous crisis. By the way, we do have the recordings and materials on the website from the 2020 sessions. For those of you that are new to Investment Connection, the best way to think about it might be as Shark Tank. So for community development organizations, and you, the funders from banks, foundations, philanthropists, state, federal, and local government are the friendly sharks. So we developed Investment Connection in 2011 to assist bankers with diverse CRA opportunities and other funders that are focused on low and moderate income households and communities. Also, for community organizations needing and wanting to raise awareness of the issues they're addressing and to raise funds and other support from the funding community. Today, you're going to hear from 8 organizations with compelling proposals in New Mexico. Each presenter will have 7 minutes for their presentation, followed by 3 minutes of Q&A. Funders, you have a Q&A button to submit your questions that I'll pose to the panelists. You do have to be quick in submitting because the session does fly by very quickly. As I said, 7 minutes for the presentation and then 3 for Q&A. Yesterday, you received an email at approximately 1 p.m. Mountain Time from Lori Groth that included the agenda, the funder response form, and an evaluation for today's event. You can pull those out to follow along. Those of you that have attended the in-person events know I usually ask you to pull out the funder response form from your packet and fill out the top. This form's not, as a reminder, this form's not a commitment to fund, but simply expressing interest in learning more about the organization and the proposal. The form lists the 8 proposals with a yes or no, so that each presentation you can mark your interest. You email the form back to Lori Groth at our office, then share the yeses. What we'll do is we share everybody that said yes in regards to a particular proposal. We share that with the organization, and then it's up to them to follow up with you. So you won't be hearing from us, you'll be hearing from the organization in which you expressed interest. But we need to receive the form from you. So we've connected over 43 million in our district in loans, investments, grants, and services. That's been reported, and we know that there's a lot more out there that we don't always hear about. It's hundreds of computer donations and thousands of community development service hours. Just the next slide, please. Slide 3. So funders with a multi-state or national footprint, I want you to be aware that Investment Connection is also in other districts. So do reach out. Let me know if I can assist, if our office can assist with our other districts. Colleagues recently completed Investment Connection Appalachia, and last year there were over 20 virtual IC events in different parts of the country. Next slide, please. So on the funder, next slide, please. Just a reminder in regards to the funder response form and the evaluations reminder. That's on the next slide. Also, reminder that as a funder, you have to do your due diligence. Bankers, you have to do basically the same effort documentation you would with any CRA activity you're considering. So we do have that disclosure to be aware of. So next slide, please. And let's go ahead and get started with our first presentation. Laura Altamar with Homewise Incorporated. Laura, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ariel. Can everybody hear and see me? Give me a thumbs up. Great, thank you.
You're good.
My name is Laura Altamar. I'm the Chief Communications Officer with Homewise. And Homewise is a nonprofit community development financial institution, so we're a CDFI. We offer comprehensive home ownership services for low to moderate income individuals and families across the state of New Mexico. We do this in a variety of ways. We empower and support our clients with financial education and coaching. We also offer real estate services. We offer affordable mortgage lending with down payment assistance and refinance and home improvement lending. We also have a community development focus that strengthens neighborhoods by increasing home ownership through real estate development, property rehabilitation, and revitalizing communities to benefit the existing residents of those communities. So since our founding, which was in 1986, we've helped over 18,000 households who have attended our financial education workshops. And we've also assisted over 6,000 people in New Mexico to become homeowners. We've helped 2,300 households make energy efficient home improvements, refinanced more than 1,200 mortgages into affordable, safe, fixed rate mortgages. And we've built nearly 900 high quality, affordable homes, mostly across the Santa Fe and Albuquerque areas. Next slide, please. So the Community Catalyst Fund is a new initiative that we've launched. It's an impact investment fund that will help us position New Mexico communities to make a meaningful and lasting impact on affordable housing while helping to create a healthy and more equitable future for our communities. This fund was launched last fall and was initially capitalized with $10 million, which included a $5 million anchor investment from Anchorum St. Vincent, as well as another $5 million anchor investment from Enterprise Bank and Trust. Since we launched the fund last fall with that $10 million initial investment, we've added 2 additional investments from the Santa Fe Community Foundation, as well as the Illinois No. 3 Foundation, and 2 individuals have also invested into the fund as well. So we are currently seeking additional institutional impact investments into the fund. We'd like to ask for a minimum of $250,000 for a starting investment into the fund. And our preferred term is at least 10 years, potentially longer, because that patient capital is really important for these long-term initiatives. So this fund really supports initiatives that benefit the entire community, the entire state of New Mexico, and is focused on catalyzing development projects and creating new financial projects and tools that make those more affordable and accessible to the low and moderate income community. So the fund really finances high impact, much needed initiatives, including things like real estate development of mixed use projects that include live workspaces that would accommodate the needs of people like healthcare practitioners, artisans, makers, entrepreneurs who are providing needed services to the surrounding neighborhood and the broader community. The fund would also finance the creation of new low impact infill rental housing by financing the development of things like casitas or guest houses, which are called auxiliary dwelling units. The fund, we've skipped ahead a slide, but I'll catch up to it. The fund also helps modest income individuals and families increase their financial well-being through affordable home purchase and home ownership. The fund will also finance things like home modifications and retrofits so that seniors can age in place, and also home improvements that address environmentally caused health problems in the home, and just pursuing a broader range of community development initiatives that benefit the local workforce, employers, their clients, and the broader community. So now I'm ready for the next slide. Thank you. So this is one example of a development project that has been supported by the Community Catalyst Fund. And this is El Camino Crossing. This is an all-solar mixed-use infill community in Santa Fe. It consists of 40 single-family residential homes. 33% of those were sold to low-income families making less than 80% of the area median income. The neighborhood also consists of 13 condos, 24 live workspaces, 8,000 square feet of commercial space that will house local restaurants and a co-working facility. And it also contains a community park that has a public art installation in the park. So this neighborhood is located in the heart of Santa Fe. It's in the newly revitalized Siler and Agua Fria corridor. It's in close proximity to local neighborhood-friendly businesses and provides residents with easy access to walking, biking paths, and public transportation. So this is just one example of the type of catalytic project that is supported through the money raised for the Community Catalyst Fund. So through this fund, we're inviting you to partner with us in building the strength and long-term resiliency of our communities across New Mexico. Thank you. And Ariel, we could open it up for questions if you'd like.
Yeah, Laura, you went fast. So let me kick it off. So definitely, funders, if you have any questions, please submit using the Q&A that's on your bottom right. Let me kick it off with first question. So in your PowerPoint, you say other communities in New Mexico. Can you expand on that? So because we have banks from throughout, funders, I should say, banks and other funders from throughout the state of New Mexico. What do you mean about other communities in New Mexico, and what would it take to bring you to another community?
Right. So right now, the majority of the projects are focused in northern New Mexico, in the Santa Fe and Albuquerque areas. But Homewise operates across the entire state of New Mexico. So for instance, if a particular funder were to come into the fund and they have an interest in specifically launching projects in other areas of the state, in addition to the areas around really Santa Fe, Los Alamos, and Albuquerque, we have the capacity to do that. We have the capability to do that. And we're really letting our funders kind of lead the way in where they would like their funds to be targeted, what areas of the state.
Okay, wonderful. And also, and it sounds like you have a minimum of 250, so kind of tranches of 250,000 plus for 10 years. And assuming you can also designate geography, that's pretty straightforward.
Yes, absolutely. And that's our initial investors into the fund have all designated specific geographies where they would like their investment to be focused.
Okay. Again, funders, please use the Q&A for any questions. I'll tell you what are some other things that you'd like to perhaps our audience to know about Homewise, or that you didn't have a chance to cover?
Sure. Well, I think, some of the important things to know about Homewise, we, as I sort of described quickly at the beginning, we work in a broad range of categories and really focus on, it's all about financial well-being, long-term financial stability, right? And the tool that we use to do that is really home ownership. So we're working with people most of our customers are below 120% of the area median income. Many of them are below 80% of the area median income. These are folks who come to us that think that home ownership is a dream that they will not be able to achieve. And they often have real obstacles to achieving it, financial obstacles and others, credit, debt, saving, income, any number of things. So we start with a really heavy focus on upfront financial education, coaching, counseling, work to help raise the client's financial profile so that they are really well prepared to be long-term successful homeowners. And I think that's an important thing to understand. We're, as a lender, as a mortgage lender, we are not lowering the standards of being able to qualify for a mortgage. We're raising the financial profile of low to moderate income New Mexicans so that they are financially prepared to be long-term successful homeowners. And an important point in that is when you look at our mortgage loan portfolio, the loans that Homewise originates, that we hold in our portfolio, our delinquency rate, which means people being late on paying their mortgage, our delinquency rate typically hovers between about 1.5% and 2% of our clients that are late on their mortgage. And I know we have a lot of financial institutions on the call today, and they know what that means in terms of when you compare that to the industry standard for prime loans, conventional loans, FHA, VA. We are consistently, significantly below all the other benchmarks that are set around loan delinquency. And I think what that proves for us is that our model of that really heavy, intense, upfront financial education and coaching to help lift the borrowers up to be able to be successful homeowners results in a very high performing quality loan portfolio as well.
All right, Laura, thank you very much. And just a reminder to everybody, as far as Homewise is a CDFI, and I know Laura had that in her first slide as well. So Laura, thank you very much for your presentation. Certainly do appreciate it. Funders, as a reminder, you have your funder response form. So if Homewise is of interest, please check yes on that. Let's continue moving forward. Next slide, please. Justin, Andrea Nash with Roadrunner Food Bank. Andrea, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you so much. And just, thank you all for the opportunity and for your time today. As you can see from our application, for 40 years, Roadrunner Food Bank has distributed food through a statewide network, including 4 smaller food banks, 450 plus partner agencies such as food pantries, schools, senior centers, and soup kitchens, as well as our own direct service programming. The entire state is served by Roadrunner and its Hunger Relief Network, and the state is still one of the neediest in the country. If you could advance the slide, that'd be great. We've all been living in interesting times with so much uncertainty and change. We've seen it in our day-to-day lives with business closures, job losses, supply chain issues. Remember back to the beginning of the pandemic when everyone was trying to find toilet paper, but finding a lot of empty shelves instead. That panic buying, that scarcity, that anxiety we all felt is the same fear and anxiety that people who are food insecure experience every single day and still do. So the mission and work of Roadrunner Food Bank is needed now more than ever. We provide food and hope to over 300,000 New Mexicans every year who experience hunger by feeding people, seeding partnerships, and leading through innovation. Because of our wonderful and generous donors, we are and have been responding to rapidly changing needs of our hungry neighbors here in New Mexico. We directly cover all of the areas in red on the map and support the other areas that are not in red. In fact, you'll be hearing from 2 of these great partners shortly during this call, the Community Pantry and the Food Depot. And all of our partners are facing the same challenges that I am describing. During the last 11 months, Roadrunner has sourced and distributed over 50 million pounds of food, which equates to nearly 24 million meals, the most in our 40-year history. And as demand continued to grow due to the pandemic, we stepped in and created several new weekly food distributions just to fill gaps around the state. In addition to trying to supply food to all of our hundreds of partners, shifting to be distributed now in boxed, pre-boxed methods that are drive-through distributions. We also continue to feed our medically compromised through our Healthy Food Center. This was done with food pre-boxed by medical condition, so conditions like hypertension, diabetes, heart disease, as we didn't want these patients to go without food, which is also their medicine. But as wonderful as all these accomplishments are, so much more is needed. New Mexico has been at the bottom of national lists for a long time, especially for childhood hunger and senior hunger. Prior to the pandemic, 1 in 6 people in New Mexico were hungry and 1 in 4 children. And obviously now it's not any better. Also, more than half of our hungry households have someone working but aren't making enough or in order to make ends meet. Now with COVID, we're obviously seeing unprecedented demand, not just from people living with food insecurity every day, but also from families that are newly in need. Making it harder is the fact that there are many areas of our state that have little to no access to fresh and healthy food. In fact, some counties in southern Mexico, some people have to travel 60 miles round trip just to go to the grocery store. For us to get all this food and fresh produce out to families across the state, we use refrigerated semi-trucks. And as you may know, New Mexico is the 5th largest state in the country, so there's a lot of ground to cover, and our fleet is at capacity. So every truck is being used and is jam-packed full of food every time it goes out. And for every additional truck we get, we can serve 2.5 million more meals over the course of a year. Next slide, please. Even after a full year of COVID-19 repercussions, Roadrunner has continued to see sustained increases for those seeking food assistance as compared to pre-pandemic times, as many New Mexicans still face underemployment or unemployment. Larger need for expansion of food purchases from our network and the materials to support those food needs. Also additional impacts to costs like capital needs, box trucks, trailers, forklifts, pallet jacks, also materials in order to box up all the food for contactless distributions, plastic for wrapping and shipping, PPE supplies, etc. All of the fuel and maintenance costs for all those trucks that I just talked about, as well as increased need for personnel, especially CDL drivers, which are becoming increasingly concerning in terms of being able to hire. And there's also continued delays and disruptions of our food supply chain from suppliers. In the coming months, we really expect to see potentially lower availability of USDA commodities, increasingly reduced to amounts of food that were part of the Farmers to Food Box federal program. Lower availability of donated foods from our traditional food industry donors, and continued elevated costs of food. Next slide, please. In addition to that sort of unknown recovery timeframe, Roadrunner and our other food banks across the country are facing another unknown with USDA TFAP funding levels going forward. TFAP stands for the Emergency Food Assistance Program. And significant reductions in this type of commodity foods combined with continued reductions in donated food will mean that food banks like us will continue to expend much higher amounts of their available budgets to source food to make up for it. The USDA uses the TFAP program funds to purchase food. The food is typically passed through the USDA to state agencies, and state agencies then partner with the food bank network to provide food to low-income people facing hunger. The USDA was at one point projected to have 5 times less TFAP dollars than it did in 2020. So how long the current levels will continue into the future versus when they'll be scaled back remains a big concern for us, especially if the needs, levels of need continue to be elevated. So in summary, costs are still running significantly higher than pre-pandemic times due to those increased needs, supplies, and changes to our distribution methods, while the number of people seeking assistance has remained elevated as well. The unknowns of how long these increased levels will continue and the effects of the reduction of commodity food remains to be seen, but Roadrunner is on track to distribute more food than we've distributed in our 40-year history. The question remains, how long will that amount be needed, and for how long can we continue to distribute at that level? So I guess our ask today is for $100,000, which would directly support our food distributions and would partially defray the costs that I mentioned associated with getting food into the hands of families in need. Specifically, the requested funding would allow us to provide approximately 2 distributions per month for a year and provide roughly 240,000 pounds of food, or the equivalent of 200,000 meals, to New Mexico communities in need. Thank you.
Andrea, thank you so much. let me kick off. And again, funders use the Q&A for questions. But kicking off, can you give us share examples of increased food costs? So understand that when donations are low, have reduced, right? The amount of donations have reduced. You're often having to purchase at the wholesale level, if I understand correctly. And what are you seeing as far as those price increases for product that you're purchasing?
That's a great question. And I would say costs on average are about 4 times higher than they were prior to the pandemic. It depends on the product. Protein in particular has always been difficult to get. And so things like peanut butter and tuna and a lot of the products that are shelf stable and readily available can be more expensive for sure. The reduction in food donations that I mentioned, we work with grocery stores, from all over the state in every way that you can imagine. And we also work with food manufacturers. And, as food manufacturing gets more lean, that means they're getting better at what they do and there's less waste, which means less reduction of food donations to us. So, when there was a lot of panic buying, people were trying to source the same food. So grocery stores were also trying to source the same food that we were trying to source, et cetera. That's obviously lessened, but the food costs themselves have still remained quite elevated as to how they were before.
Okay. And in regards to the 100,000, that's basically as grant funding. Can funders designate a certain county, what have you, for
Yes.
their designation? How does that work?
Absolutely. They could designate it to the county if they had one of the programs in mind that was on our application that they were interested in supporting through that. So if they were interested in childhood hunger, for example, could designate that to that program, or senior hunger. We can certainly work with a funder on what their intent and what their desires are.
Okay. Well, and anything, I know this is always a short amount of time for presenting, pitching, what have you. Anything, any last minute comments you'd like to make as far as something perhaps that you'd like to emphasize with the audience?
I think, New Mexico is a hungry state, and it takes all of us to help. And the pandemic has certainly lessened up from how it was a year ago in some regards, but for hunger, it has not lessened up. So the help is appreciated, and I just appreciate the time to be able to give you an insight a little bit into that.
Andrew, thank you so much. Certainly do appreciate it. All right, so funders, again, you have your funder response form. So if this is something of interest, please mark yes on your funder response form. If I could, Justin, have you move to the next slide, please. So Diego Gallegos with Youth Development Incorporated. And I think if we can go to the starting slide. So Diego, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I hope that you can hear me. First of all, thank you very much for having me.
You sound good.
Sounds good. Thank you. First of all, thank you very much for letting us be here to present information about our organization and our proposal. Let me tell you a little bit about Youth Development Incorporated. 1971 is when Youth Development started. A gentleman in the South Valley here in Albuquerque had just lost his teenage son to a heroin overdose. And so he got together with a group of his neighbors, his family, and they went to the Bernalillo County Commission and said, we need to do something for our young people here in the South Valley of Albuquerque. I grew up in the South Valley, so I'm well aware of some of the issues that they were talking about. The Bernalillo County Commission came up with $50,000 back there in 1971 and administrative support, and thus the South Valley Youth Development Project began. We began right here in the South Valley of Albuquerque, a handful of employees, and from there we've grown to an organization that is serving 16 of New Mexico's 33 counties. And we went from a handful to now approximately 450 employees. Our annual budget now has grown from that 50,000 that Bernalillo County Commission gave care and education for pregnant moms, preschool and childcare, family development support, alternative education, job training and employment assistance, mental and behavioral health services, homeless and emergency housing, child abuse prevention intervention, mentoring, family counseling, and supervised visitation services. Next one, please. So our mission is to partner with families to help them solve life's problems. We use the teaching them to fish approach rather than giving them a fish. In our early childhood education team, they've been partnering with Head Start for over 25 years, and we are a couple of weeks away from learning whether we have another 5-year partnership with Head Start. We have 20 Head Start centers here in Bernalillo County, and then 10 in Rio Arriba and Taos counties in northern New Mexico. Our early childhood education team provides home visitation services. They start with children very young, and as young as 6 months old, all the way to kindergarten. And these folks, one of the really exciting things about our early childhood team is that 40% of the people that work for us in that team are past Head Start parents. Now, our prevention, intervention, and behavioral health team, we have 2 24-hour homes or shelters, and we're going to open a third one in the next few weeks in Rio Rancho. That team provides drug prevention and intervention support, street outreach. We go where we're needed. We have a court-ordered visitation and exchange program, and our biggest growth has been in our child abuse prevention intervention programs. We also provide youth and family therapy. In our education, employment, and training team, we are the youth services provider for what's known as the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act funding that comes from the feds to New Mexico. And we're the providers in central and southern New Mexico. A really important note, we've had a program in this division called the Stay in School program. And over 90% of the students that we've worked with over 33 years have stayed in school and graduated, 90%. So at YDI, we have the experience, the skills, the motivation, and the commitment to implement our proposal. We have a strong administrative team. Our board is made up of folks from Bernalillo, Valencia, Taos, and Rio Arriba counties, Sandoval County also. And our board is very diverse: African American, Native American, Hispanic American, and Anglo Americans comprise our board. So one of the things we've learned over the years, over these 50 years that we've been working as an organization, is that our secret sauce is about helping youth through a case management model, a wraparound services model. We know that youth come not just with one problem, they have a lot of issues. And so we're able to wrap more support around them. But the most important support that we wrap around is around the family. We've learned that if you do not support the family, the youth does not make the kind of progress that they could make. And so we believe deeply that it's about supporting the family if you want to support the young child. And as I said, we provide services where and when the need arises. We've been doing that since the beginning. We provide services at 8 o'clock Monday morning or 8 o'clock Saturday night when the need arises. Next slide, please. So our proposal, folks, is really simple, just like my presentation. In New Mexico, we have a federal court decision called the Yazzie Martinez lawsuit. And in that lawsuit, New Mexico was told that we are not providing sufficient education for children of color, for children of the poor, for children that have disabilities or second language learners. And so New Mexico is poised to put more resources into education. But we believe that if you do not provide support to the family, the children will not do as well as they could. So our proposal simply is to work with 3 schools in the South Valley where we started, where we continue to work. We would pick an elementary, a middle, and a high school. If we were to get sufficient funding for all of them, we could do 1 or all 3. So we would work with the Albuquerque Public Schools to identify the students and families to serve. They would help us do that. And once those are identified, we would develop a relationship with those families, and we provide them a mental health assessment, treatment planning, individual and family counseling, case management, and family support services. We know that families need a lot of different kinds of support. It could be that they need something around a job. Maybe they need job training to try a different kind of work. Maybe they need housing. You already heard a presentation around housing. They may need food. So by using a case management model, we're able to address all of those issues for the families. So we're requesting $630,000 or $210,000 per school. Now we will leverage Medicaid if we don't get enough money. That's a challenge. Those of us that leverage Medicaid know how challenging that can be. The school district might have some resources that we could access. And then we have other services that are provided by YDI. As I said, a family might need something in the workforce area. So our education, employment, and training team could provide support there. They might have a need for preschool. And so we would be able to provide them that. They might have a need for family therapy. So we would provide them that. So all of these things are things that we believe will make a huge difference. And if you know, the difference that it'll make, folks, is that I know, having been an educator for 39 years, that children bring a lot of stress to the school and to the teacher. If we can help the children by not having so much stress at the home, we believe that the kids won't be as stressed out in school, and thus there won't be as much stress for the family. So we would take our results and we would communicate them to the APS School Board, the New Mexico Public Education Department, and the New Mexico Legislature as something that can really make a difference for our families and our children in the long run. Thank you very much. I stand for questions.
All right, Diego, thank you very much. And also I've been advised to, if you have questions, to submit via chat, please, and to direct those to me. And my name should be there, Ariel Cisneros. So send them my way. So Diego, let me start. You say 3 schools. So those have not been identified in regards to this proposal. So you'd work with the Albuquerque Public Schools to identify those 3 schools, but I'm assuming that all 3 would be on the high level, regardless of free and reduced lunch. Can you comment?
Ariel, we actually have submitted this proposal a number of times, and we actually picked 3 schools because these 3 schools are in the heart of the South Valley, and all of them are 100% free and reduced lunch.
Okay, all right. And any kind of a breakdown that you can give us in regards to the 210,000 as far as how it would be allocated?
The way we structured it is that we would need a clinical therapist, we would need a case manager, and then we would need a clinical supervisor and some level of administrative support to them. So between salaries and benefits, that's a majority of the proposal is salary and benefits.
Wonderful. All right. And this is basically all as far as a grant proposal request is for grants in this case.
Yes, please.
Anything on the service side? I know that organizations, including banks and other funders, are sometimes looking for volunteer opportunities. Anything that YDI, whether it's through this proposal or others, that may have opportunities?
You know, we're always looking for folks to work in our Head Start centers, to come in, read to children, support them. So volunteers there would be helpful. We have our homes where, you know, once in a while we have folks come in and give our folks a little break, or some folks come in and provide meals to our residents in our shelters. So there are a number of ways that people could help us.
All right, terrific. Okay, looking to make sure. Okay, anything else that perhaps you'd like to highlight before we wrap up?
Well, I'd like to just support the first 2 presentations. Our families, you know, need housing. That's really an issue all the time. And even though we serve about 500,000 meals a day to our children, our Head Start children in particular, we know that Roadrunner provides many meals to many folks in the schools that we work with right now. And the schools that we have picked, actually, I know because I sit on their community council that they are getting food every week from Roadrunner. So all these needs are really important to all of us that are doing this kind of work.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Very holistic as far as its housing, its food insecurity, its stable school educational environment, et cetera. So thank you very much for your presentation. To the funders attending, you have your funder response form. If this is something that you'd like to receive additional information on, make a connection with YDI, please mark it as a yes. With that, I'm going to ask that we forward to the next slide. And Alice Perez with the Community Pantry. Alice, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ariel. Alice Perez here with the Community Pantry. I'm located in Gallup, New Mexico, but we also have a sister pantry in Grants, New Mexico, and we encompass both the counties of McKinley County and Cibola County. If we could go to the first slide. Oh, we are there. Excuse me, I'm sorry. We try and feed people from birth all the way to death. So we feed the elderly, the homeless, children, veterans, and families in need in McKinley County and Cibola counties in New Mexico. And it's because no mother's child should go hungry. We've been doing this for the past 22 years. Together, Cibola County and McKinley County encompass close to 10,000 square miles of land in the state of New Mexico. McKinley County encompasses 80% of their land that is Native American reservation lands. Cibola County has about 27% of it being Native American reservation lands. Both counties are ranked #1 and #3 in the state of New Mexico as far as having the highest poverty rates, food insecurity, and child hunger, which is 1 in 3 children in McKinley County who is at risk for food insecurity. New Mexico is ranked number 2 in the nation. 100% of all of our public schools is participating in the free and reduced lunch programs. So we have no children that pay for breakfast or lunch in our schools. The mission of the Community Pantry is to acquire, store, and distribute wholesome food to children, the elderly, and families in need. And the reason for that is so that we can achieve our our vision of nourishing our families and children in our communities so that they may thrive. And it's because our motto is no mother's child should go hungry. It's our goal to make sure that our children and families are able to have nutritional food so that the children may focus on learning in the classroom, have a healthier beginning in life so that the sustainability of their health can be achieved. It is also our goal to help educate their parents so that they may help them achieve those same goals. We work collaboratively with our local government, both city and county, our local hospitals and physicians, along with our schools and teachers. We work with what they see in their offices and in their classrooms and the homes in which these children come from, and develop plans and programs that help each organization achieve the same goals. A healthy community is a thriving community. If we could go to the next slide, please. $1 equals 4 meals. $100,000, which is what our ask is, will provide 400,000 meals. In 2020, the Community Pantry in Gallup and Grants provided 4,453,143 meals to people in need. That's double what we've done prior to the pandemic. The combined population of both counties is almost 74,000 people. And New Mexico is ranked number 49th in poverty, with 18.2% of the population living below poverty level. So with what Andrea told you, we service a huge population in the state of New Mexico. 28.8% of the residents in Cibola County, New Mexico, live below poverty level, ranking them at 30 out of 33 counties. 37.5% of the residents in McKinley County live below poverty level, ranking them at 33 out of 33 counties. Both Gallup and Grants are located in what is called food deserts. There's very, very few natural resources. Through the Community Pantry Hope Garden, we offer community garden opportunities with the resources and education for the community members to learn how to garden for themselves, creating a sustainable resource of healthy foods and possibly of economic development through the farmers market programs. We provide 3 mobile food drives each month to cover the most remote areas of the 2 counties due to the lack of transportation and the large amount of distance for our clients. We have a southbound route which covers the Fence Lake, Rama, and Zuni reservation areas, which provides food for approximately 350 families every month. The northbound route, which takes place in Navajo, New Mexico, it provides food to approximately 200 families. The northeast route takes place in Crown Point, New Mexico, where we provide food for about 400 families. We also provide distribution to the Laguna Pueblo, which is located east of Grants, New Mexico. Altogether, we provide 8 programs that work with people of all ages, backgrounds, income levels, and interests. If I could have the next slide, please. We have the free and reduced, the free produce for everyone. This is given to everybody once a week. And through the New Mexico Food Bank Association, we are able to accumulate a lot of produce. The emergency food box for those in need. This is to help people who kind of live on the balance. They're not quite low income, but they're not high income either. And sometimes people's cars will break down. So we tell them, take your money, fix your car. Let us take care of your food for the next 2 weeks. That way they can focus on what their family needs instead of stressing over how they're going to feed them. We have the Food for Kids program during the school year, which is formerly known as the Backpack program. We also have the Emergency Food Assistance Program, which is the TFAP program, which, like Andrea told you, is going to be going down this next year. We don't know how we're going to be able to sustain the amount of foods that we're putting out because of the cost of goods. We also have the agency program, which is a program that we use other nonprofit organizations to make, let's say, make our arms longer. For the people who can't reach us and we can't reach them, we use these agencies to get the food out. We also have the Dollar Stretcher and Meat Box programs for everyone. This allows everyone to make their dollar stretch further into the community. We have the Hope Garden Community Garden program, which is open to anybody and everybody for educational purposes, entrepreneurship, and just basic, getting back with Mother Nature. And then we have the Volunteer Community Development Program. We rely heavily on our volunteers. We have a staff of 12 people here. And pre-pandemic, we were serving almost 3,500 families a month. And at one point during the pandemic, we were serving over 7,000 families every month. Our goal is to help people become more dependent on themselves and to utilize the resources that are available to us through our counties. We work very collaboratively with all of our resources in our counties because we are so small. And like I said, transportation is so minimal in this area, especially with the Navajo transit system being shut down. Thank you.
Alice, thank you so much. And I didn't mean for you to cut it off so quickly, so I hope I didn't cut you off. Thank you so much for your presentation, your comments. Startling in regards to, and I think Andrea had shared similar circumstances as far as the demand for your services is basically during the, and perhaps still going on, more than doubled in many cases for your programming. And certainly in regards to the food insecurity, 1 in 3 children that you showed as far as in McKinley County. I asked earlier about the increased food costs when donations are short. And so, and that's also, I would imagine, a significant part of your budget, would you say?
Yes, yes. It's a tremendous amount. And it's almost doubled because of the cost. And because the entire United States is vying for the same food, like Andrea said. So we're competing with the grocery stores as well as, everybody else.
Everybody else. Oh my goodness. And you highlighted in one of your slides that significant, actually, percentage of your population is the Native American population. Any comments that you could add in regards to how they have been, that population in itself has been impacted by the pandemic and the economic crisis?
Well, it's been impacted hugely. For one thing, the entire Navajo Nation has 13 grocery stores on it, and we all know it encompasses a huge amount of land, both in New Mexico and in Arizona. So when I say that they travel 35 to 68 miles one way to the nearest grocery store, that grocery store could end up being a convenience store.
So not even a full service grocery store.
Exactly. And so we have people traveling as far as 90 miles just to get to Gallup for a full-fledged grocery store. And so the availability of fresh produce, as well as the proteins and the shelf staple items that they need, it's just very rare to come up with out on the reservation lands for some people.
Yeah.
And that's one reason why we do the mobile runs too.
Okay. And you'd also mentioned an entrepreneurship program. Can you touch on that briefly, if you don't mind?
Sure. Through the Community Pantry Hope Garden, we invite our community. We've secured one grant that has allowed us to make it completely free to the community to do this. They come and they get a garden box, and we teach them how to plant foods that they want, the produce and the fruits and stuff like that. And we have a commercial kitchen here where they are allowed to come in and take care of their harvests. And they're also allowed to utilize the commercial kitchen for cooking classes. We have those for them. We teach them how to can and jar their food so that they can take it to the farmer's market and produce a little bit of extra income for their families.
Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you very much, Alice. Thank you very much for your presentation. Funders, you have your funder response form. If this is a proposal of interest, please mark yes. Alice, thank you so much. Next, we have Lupe Maris with Lift Fund. Lupe, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ariel. Good afternoon. Again, my name is Lupe Mares. I'm the Vice President of the Southwest region. I want to begin by thanking the Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City and the funders present here today. Lift Fund, which is a nonprofit small business lending company, we are a CDFI, and we service 13 states. Can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. We currently, and there's a typo there. We just recently acquired another state, which is New York. But since COVID-19 struck our communities, we've been able to help small businesses along our footprint, which includes, of course, New Mexico, 2,603 relief loans totaling $57 million. And the average loan was about $23,000. We've also been able to help 2,794 small businesses with grants totaling over $55 million for an average grant of about $20,000. Now, our support we would not be able to do this without the support of our funding partners that allow us to lift these small businesses during these times. We were just awarded recently by the U.S. Department of Commerce an EDA grant for $1 million that will be able to continue to help these small businesses. Those loans are up to $250,000 with a 3.5 interest rate for a 24 to 120 month term, which is great for some of these small businesses. However, we've learned with boots on the ground and talking to these small business owners that they need grants. They need grants, that they're scared of taking out a loan because they're afraid of the conditions. They don't know the uncertainty. They don't know what's going to happen 3-6 months down the line. Next slide, please. So we came up with a plan. It's called the New Mexico Small Business Resiliency Program, which provides affordable capital, a lot of technical assistance. And this is what we're requesting, some funding for technical assistance. And I'm not talking about your typical technical assistance that we offer, webinars, workshops. I'm talking about a lot of one-on-one technical assistance, and I'll get into that a little more. But from the Opportunity Insights Tracker, we've learned that with technical assistance, that increases the chance of businesses surviving by 40%. In Doña Ana County alone, 45% of small businesses have closed since January of 2020. In the state, total small business revenue has decreased by 31%. Now, we got into a partnership with the city of Las Cruces last year, and we brought in a business development officer within the Doña Ana County. As of August 2020 through first quarter of 2021, we provided approximately 150 hours of technical assistance to about 80 small businesses that are economically disadvantaged and underrepresented backgrounds to access capital through disaster relief funds. And those relief funds were through the New Mexico Finance Authority, local government grants, PPP, where, a fact is that there were about 157,000, there are about 157,000 small businesses registered in New Mexico, and 40,000 of those received PPP. And those industries were in accommodation and food service, construction, and professional and technical services. We also helped them with the SBA EIDL loans, SBA Restaurant Revitalization Fund. We have helped so many small businesses get their paperwork in line. There's so many that do not have their financials in order. Many of these small business owners keep their ledger on a journal, in a notebook with pen and paper. And so we want to help these small businesses. And through that, we are hoping to use the same model that we've been using in West Texas, which is the Micro Enterprise Technical Assistance Program, for short MTAP. And what it is the promotora model. Now, if you're not familiar with the promotora, these are individuals from certain communities. For example, we have a lot of colonias along the border. In Doña Ana County alone, we have about 37 colonias. These colonias do not have your infrastructure that most areas do. They don't have running water. Some of them do not have paved roads. Some of them are borrowing electricity from their neighbors and paying them. It is a very sad situation, and it's something that is present in our backyards. And so a lot of these a lot of these individuals are entrepreneurs. They start their small businesses, whether it's a small post where selling food or whatever it is. They are trying to make ends meet by having their own small business. However, there's opportunity for them to expand and grow with the technical assistance. And so the promotora model under Micro Enterprise Technical Assistance Program, we would do a lot of that, help these individuals. So for example, if an individual applied for a loan through us and they get declined because maybe they have credit issues, what we do, we assign this person or this small business owner to a staff member under the Micro Enterprise Technical Assistance Program, and they give them a lot of one-on-one, helping them get through those barriers or what is hurting them on their credit report. And so with this, we're hoping that within 3, 6 months, or even a year later, they can apply and receive those funds. However, we're wanting to help them to be able to apply for the PPPs, for the EIDL loans, for any funding that's made available through the state of New Mexico, or, local governments. So again, the Micro Enterprise Technical Assistance Program increases the revenue for low to moderate income micro enterprise business owners. And this increases their wealth and opportunity for asset building. It also improves their quality of life. We want to see that the wages increase also for low income workers to improve also their quality of life. And we also want to establish or increase the number of businesses and consumers of services available in low income residential areas, which typically are underserved. And so again, this is something that is so important, and we see that a lot of technical assistance is needed. And again, it's going block walking and knocking on those doors of these small businesses and help them. Many, for the program that we have currently in El Paso, under the MTAP, we have one individual that, again, does block walking and goes and meets with these small business owners during working hours because they can't take the time off to attend these workshops, to do virtual. Some of these don't have broadband. They don't have that the internet service to tap into some of these virtual workshops that are being offered. Next slide, please. So, we do have, Lift Fund has their own business support services. We do have virtual learning opportunities. That's something that a lot of small businesses, the ones that do have that capability, are able to tap into. We have Initiate, an online learning platform. And of course, like I said, we do a lot of one-on-one. If we can't provide that service, we'll hire somebody. If it's in marketing, social media, whatever it is, we will hire that professional to work with the small businesses. So currently we're asking for $50,000 to help fund the technical assistance program in New Mexico. And I hope that you will join our movement. Thank you.
Lupe, thank you very much. And one thing that for the bankers that are attending, want to remind them as far as their CD services, as far as utilizing their expertise. So Lupe, I know you mentioned marketing, but also in regards to financial expertise, utilizing that expertise does count for CRA purposes.
That's correct.
So, and I don't know, is there a need? I know you said, you can hire those things out, and certainly, but I'm sure you do also involve volunteers to basically maybe do a QuickBooks session or a finance overview or some other things. So opportunities for volunteers, would you say, for Lift Fund?
Oh, absolutely, Ariel. More than you can imagine. I say this often, it takes a village to help a community. It really does.
Most definitely. So going back to the technical assistance, Lupe, how do you work with, or is it coordinated with, we know we have the SBDC, Small Business Development Centers, with their TA. Is yours technical assistance more getting them ready for applying for what they need to do for a Lift Fund loan?
That is correct. And also for grant opportunities, Ariel. But, some of these small business owners that we're targeting are ones that don't know about the SBDCs. They don't know about, resources that are available to them free. And so we, again, do a lot of block walking and really working with the promotoras that are, again, within the communities, these colonias, to help these small business owners. But the resources are here. And something that's really, really important, Ariel, we do this both in English and in Spanish, mainly Spanish, because a lot of these individuals don't speak English and they need, all these services in Spanish.
Okay. And just to emphasize again, you are a CDFI statewide across New Mexico. And so
Correct.
if a funder would like to designate a specific geography, you can certainly narrow that down.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because the need is everywhere. It's all over the state of New Mexico. So absolutely. And, yes, we cover the whole state.
All right, terrific. And 13 states, or did you say
It's
that
14,
number's gone
actually.
up?
Yes, to 14. We just recently acquired New York also. So we're in the state of Texas, of course, New Mexico, and all along the Delta from Texas to Florida.
Okay, so again, for funders that are basically covering other geographies in addition to New Mexico, keep that in mind as well. So Lupe, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ariel.
Appreciate it. And funders, you have your funder response form. So again, if Lift Fund is of interest, please mark yes on that report. So let's move on. So Jill Dixon is with the Food Depot and coming up next. So Jill, the floor is yours.
Hello, thank you so much for creating this opportunity for us today. Absolutely thrilled to be here. Goodness, where to begin? The Food Depot, I know you've heard a lot about food banks today, and it's really exciting to get that word out there to everyone. We are Northern New Mexico's food bank. We serve a different area than the Roadrunner Food Bank and the community pantry that you heard about earlier. We serve the 9 northernmost counties, and in that service area, we have over 115 partnerships with other nonprofit programs. Prior to the pandemic, I think it's so important to talk about the before and the after. We were primarily a behind the scenes organization that coordinated mass acquisition of food and distribution of that food to a series of nonprofit partners who then gave it to people who were experiencing food insecurity. During the pandemic, because so many of those small organizations had their sustainability threatened by the loss of volunteers and folks that were vulnerable to the pandemic, we saw that we had to step into a lot of spaces and take on a more direct role in providing hunger relief. And that was very eye-opening about what we needed to do in the future. To give a little bit of context, across that 26,000 square mile area that we serve, we have those 115 nonprofit partners. And in a typical year, prior to the pandemic, we would have distributed 6.5 million pounds of food. That translates to a little over 5.5 million meals. During the pandemic, we increased distribution by 86% in a single year, which is pretty phenomenal. And because sometimes a picture is worth 1,000 words, I wanted to take a couple of minutes to play you a video that summarizes what our impact was across 2020. And when we come back, I'll talk a little bit about what the future looks like and what your investment would mean. If we could play that video, that would be great. Okay, so a lot of that imagery that you saw there came from our more direct service that we got involved with during the pandemic. We really turned things on their head. We went from having about 25% of our work be one-to-one with folks that were experiencing food insecurity, and now it's more of a 50-50 split. Given that information, we are looking towards a different future, and our board of directors as well as our leadership team have been meeting really regularly to look at the work we've done. And on one hand, it's incredible to see those results that we were able to absolutely dramatically increase food distribution as much as we did in a single year, making sure that over 11 million pounds of food got out to people in need. But at the same time, it's really devastating that the need is that profound. And our work in looking towards our future began with a really simple question of, rather than having another strategic plan looking toward how much food can we distribute, how much more food can we distribute into the community, what if we started asking the question, if our goal really is to create hunger-free communities. What do we need to do to reach that goal? And the answer really is not necessarily to increase the amount of food that we provide in communities, but make sure that we're investing equally in immediate acute hunger relief measures, as well as mitigation strategies to help support people in moving through a situation of food insecurity and a situation of poverty. So as we move into the next future at the Food Depot, we're really excited to tackle the need to develop robust partnerships with other social service organizations in our community and look towards strategic partnerships that help to alleviate poverty and alleviate food insecurity on a more sustainable and long-term level. In the medium time frame, that looks like helping people enroll in SNAP and WIC that maybe haven't been accessing those services because they haven't been able to get to an ISD office, and coordinating with education partners and healthcare partners that can mitigate some other situations that might be creating barriers for people that are trying to get job training or move forward into a more financially secure future. So we want to absolutely keep doing what we're so good at, which is acquiring this food and getting it into the hands of people who need it. There's no change there. But we want to make sure that we are investing with your support in mitigation strategies that will help people move through poverty and advocating on the local, regional, and national level for systems change that will help support folks into a future where there is less hunger in our communities and not just a persistent need that recurs every year. That's what we see a good future being, is a hunger-free community that we serve. And we also intend to move into those communities considering each community's unique characteristics. We discovered during the course of the pandemic that a one-size-fits-all approach is not necessarily appropriate. So we're really eager to move into each of the counties that we serve and have conversations about what type of strategies and support services would increase food security here in this particular community, and how would you like those services delivered? And that we could really adjust the way that we tackle food insecurity on a community by community basis in the most appropriate and sensitive and effective ways. And that's where we're headed. So with absolute profound respect for this opportunity and for your time today, the Food Depot is requesting $25,000 to help support the continuation of its acute hunger relief strategies that are proven to be incredibly effective, and also your investment in a hunger-free northern New Mexico by helping to support us as we pursue mitigation strategies for food security. Thank you.
Jill, thanks so much. Can you tell us in regards to the request of funds, which is a grant, how that would be applied as far as how you see that being allocated?
We are going to use that money first and foremost to get culturally appropriate, healthy food into the food bank and make sure that that is distributed appropriately within each community that we serve. We would have equitable distribution across those 9 counties. So first and foremost, the $25,000 would be used towards food acquisition and distribution. It would also be used to support our resource navigation program. We're needing to expand staffing. We have a team of resource navigators who are working on doing social determinants of health evaluations with persons that are seeking assistance. And that helps us to identify what other needs might be present in those folks. So perhaps they're in need of affordable health care, or they haven't seen a doctor in quite some time and it's preventing them from continuing with their work, that we'll be able to connect them to a network of other resources. And we're going to need a couple more people on staff to help tackle the number of folks that are seeking assistance.
Great, thank you. And you mentioned healthy food, which is good. And I know that that's certainly been something that food banks have been looking at through the gardens and so forth. But anything to add in regards to the healthy foods movement, especially when it comes to the demand that's out there right now and the food insecurity? I know often the case it's almost a balance of trying to get calories out there, but in that healthy food, how does that balance out?
Absolutely. First, just a brag moment. Our last strategic plan had measures for how much healthy food we were distributing based on our overall total. We were trying to shoot for 50% of our overall distribution being fruits and vegetables and 20% of it being protein items. We exceeded both of those goals in the last year. Moving forward into the next evolution of this future, we want to look very much at healthy foods that are distributed in a way that people can actually use them. As a small example, we were giving out a lot of root vegetables, carrots, potatoes, sweet potatoes over the course of the pandemic because they had a substantial shelf life, which is fantastic. But we also heard a lot of feedback from our senior communities that folks that had profound arthritis weren't really able to use them because they couldn't cut them up. Sure. And that's an area of learning that maybe moving into a food rescue model where we acquire that food and we use our kitchen, we have a commercial kitchen, to produce prepared meals for certain groups of people that meet the full plate guidelines from the USDA and work in a prepared foods model of food rescue in addition to the raw grocery items, so that we give people choices about how we deliver healthy foods to them in a way that best meets their needs.
Great. Thank you very much. Actually, I wouldn't have thought of the difficulty in regards to preparing those root vegetables, but thank you so much for your presentation. Funders, you have a funder response form, so if this is of interest, please mark it. And Jill, thank you so much for your time. Let's keep moving. And we've got Dave Castillo with Native Community Capital. Dave, the floor is yours.
Thank you. And do we have the slide deck? First slide. There it is. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. And yeah, thank you for the opportunity to be here, and thank you for partners, colleagues, and others on this call. The work that that's being done here by all the folks presenting is critical. So thank you for that. Native Community Capital, we're headquartered at Laguna Pueblo, which is about 45 minutes east of Albuquerque, off of the 40. We provide home loans, small business loans, and debt consolidation loans for Native Americans living on and off tribal trust lands in the greater Southwest. We like to say that we have investment opportunities for the most conservative investor to the most intrepid. Home loans and small business loans are guaranteed by the federal government up to 100%, and thus most attractive to our investors. But as you can see from the total volume for each product in this slide, and indicated by the shaded blue area in each circle, the greatest demand is for debt consolidation loans, which are often unsecured and do not carry a guarantee. An investment in our mortgage pool or small business fund is prudent as we're growing that portfolio this year. We've recently become a licensed mortgage lender in Arizona and New Mexico. In addition, sales of both home and business loans to the secondary market will be a feature beginning late third quarter of this year. That said, credit counseling and debt consolidation is sorely needed. That activity is labor and cost intensive, and so we typically request integrated capital investments to support that work. In addition, we typically request that investors allow for any debt that is offered to us and intended to serve the best performing part of our portfolio, those mortgages or small business loans, that they allow a maximum of or they allow at least 25% of those funds to be also used for a small dollar lending activity. And the way that looks, I mean, we got approached by one of our investors who basically said, we're gonna lend to you based on the strength of your balance sheet. You could use it as an internal warehouse line and use it however you like. On the other hand, we have a PRI investor who approached us and said, we really like the relationships that you have with other Native nonprofit organizations who are providing those services. So we would love to make a loan to you based on your balance sheet, and then you can actually serve as an intermediary to relend a portion of those funds to these other Native nonprofits who do that work, but who probably can't get access to debt financing at this point. So they're really interested in kind of supporting and growing that ecosystem. So that's exactly what we do. And what makes our lending activity successful is this ecosystem of tribal leadership, or Native-led organizations with which we partner either as governance board or advisory board members or other formal relationships. And some of those other Native nonprofits are listed there at the bottom of that slide. At the end of the day, our work and that of our Native CDFI allies is gaining more and more attention due to the efficacy of our work. But we're still somewhat overshadowed by large tribal enterprise investment opportunities. And let me just say now, both types of investments are important and necessary. I'm going to just kind of touch on that here on the next slide. Next slide, please. Yeah, there it is. So I won't go over this slide in detail, but the point is that investment opportunities in Indian countries span the spectrum. And it's important to recognize that where large investments are needed, these are generally well served by the capital markets. If, as an investor in the room today, you specialize in the types of projects that are listed on the right side of the slide, tax credit projects, other types of syndicated transactions, or deals that are securitized and sold to investors, please do more of that. Tribal enterprises are a good investment. But I'd also ask that you recognize that over the last 20 years, Native CDFIs have built the infrastructure necessary to deploy capital for the small business community and individual Native families and the mortgage lending that we do. Those deals support activity that make up the fabric of local informal tribal economies that are, unfortunately, routinely overlooked by conventional financial institutions. It's important to recognize that the hesitancy expressed by even sophisticated investors in the past for these types of transactions is much more or less pronounced today, given the legal instruments and precedent that's in place to mitigate the risks associated with lending for projects on tribal trust lands, where tribes retain sovereign authority. And that's kind of the reason that so many lenders in the earlier days were confused and intimidated by the prospect of doing a deal in Indian country. The fact is we exist because conventional lenders would not, and still do not in most cases, will not provide residential construction financing on tribal trust lands. We specialize in that. We partner with tribes, tribal leadership, and others, understand the mortgage ordinances, the leasing ordinances, and how to mitigate the risks and how to work out issues as they may arise for any particular homeowner. That said, we really do appreciate our conventional lender partners who will provide permanent financing once the home is built and a lien can be perfected on that structure via leasehold mortgage. It takes a village, if you will. So that's a big part of what we do as well. But now we can do single close loans as a licensed mortgage lender and our secondary market partners. Last slide. I guess what I would say here is that, for too long, investors have helped grow the balance sheet of the largest organizations while overlooking those organizations innovating at the local level. And so we urge you to consider investing directly in local tribal communities and Native CDFIs or other partners in other geographies. And so, this slide here, in terms of the specific ask, the current capital raise is we're raising $5 million through a mortgage pool, minimum investment of $500,000, minimum term of 5 years, maximum interest rate of 2%, and integrated with grant funds to support our home buyer education. And I think that's it. I think I did that pretty quickly. So if there are any questions, I'd love to engage with any of the folks that are on the line.
Dave, that's right. You did go fast, so you've covered it. Hey, just as a reminder to the audience, Native Community Capital is a CDFI, and you're also a multi-state CDFI. Can you kind of talk about that? How many states you're covering in regards to with this mortgage pool? I know we're covering New Mexico today, but what other states would this cover for those funders that have multi-state operations?
Right. So we primarily serve New Mexico and Arizona. We're licensed in Arizona and New Mexico. With our small business lending, we work in California, Hawaii, Oklahoma, and we've done deals in other areas where we have some capacity or good relationships with tribes or others in other states. But for the mortgage lending piece and the small dollar lending, we really focus on the communities just in New Mexico and Arizona.
Very good. And for what's the intersection with the mortgage pool and the HUD 184, for example?
Right. So the mortgage pool funds the loans, and then the 184 would be the permanent financing source. So whether we originate a conventional loan, a niche loan, or a 184, that could be sold to the secondary market. And it's just really a different kind of product, right? In some cases, it's actually better for the borrower, especially for the over income. By that I mean over 80% AMI. Like if we're trying to serve folks that have good credit and incomes that are more standard, a conventional mortgage might work better for them. In any case, the point is we offer a number of different mortgage products. Some are specific to just one tribe. For example, Pueblo of Laguna funds the mortgages to their tribal members there. And so that's held in portfolio. Whereas if they don't qualify, if a tribal member does not qualify for that loan, we put them into a 184 conventional and then sell that to the secondary market.
Okay. And Dave, for those institutions that are basically seeing that minimum investment of 500K as, maybe they'd be looking at 250K, can you kind of share with the audience as to why you have that minimum? And even though it might be negotiable, but help them understand, the cost that you're having to deal with and so forth, as far as reporting and so all of that goes into it.
Right. We're still a small organization. I mean, at the end of the day, as you can imagine, it's easier to have 10 investors than it is to have 50. And at the smaller dollar amount, we're really talking a different kind of organization. I think 250 is reasonable, but when we get into the $10,000 and $50,000 level, typically those investors are looking for a different kind of relationship and a different kind of impact. And so, quite honestly, the investors that we've got on board so far for this are kind of set the speed limit, if you will, right? They're coming in at anywhere from $500,000 to 1.5 million for 7 years, in some cases close to 0% up to 2%. So kind of a happy medium there is 500,000. And in terms of the financial institutions, interest in this, and that's really at the end of the day what we're looking for. We're looking for a good fit, right? That's why I say if you're doing tax credit financing, if you're a tax credit investor or doing something else and you've really got a niche for that, then maybe continue to do that. We had a bank recently that was acquired by Glacier, and they said, look, we've got a little bit of experience in this. Our executives want to do more. We want to be an investor. And so they're coming in at 250,000. But yeah, we're happy to have a conversation.
All right. So negotiable and certainly up for discussion. So Dave, thank you so much for your presentation. Certainly do appreciate it. Thanks for joining us. So funders, you have a funder response form. So if Native Community Capital is of interest, you'd like that follow-up conversation, please mark yes. And let's proceed with Tracy Weaver with Saranon. Tracy, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Hi, I'm Tracy Weaver. I am the Executive Director at Saranom. I really appreciate the opportunity to come and share with you a little bit more about the Saranom program, as well as our plans for the future. So the next slide, please. Saranom is a 2-year, 2-generational approach to ending homelessness and poverty in families. So we provide up to 2 years of free housing to families who are homeless, while they really work hard on increasing their formal education through GED, community college or university, as well as a really extensive amount of life skills training to both the adults and the children in our program. We know that if we increase our education, that income increases. And so we are really trying to end the poverty that comes along with the homelessness in our family. The third kind of pillar of Saranom, besides housing and education, is supportive community. And so we weave that piece of community and network and healthy communication throughout everything that we do in our program, because we know also that as people, and we've seen this through the pandemic, that people need people. We need our connections, we need our networks. And when a family becomes homeless, they've really lost a lot of those connections. And so we're all about reconnecting people with other people. Our families in our program work hard for 2 years to really learn how to stay stable once they are stable. And so they move out on their own into their own housing, and they live stably, either still in school or with their jobs. Our alumni programming that we started 2 years ago is showing great results of our families long term, up to about 10 to 12 years since our inception, that our families are remaining stable. We have an 89% stability rate post exit. So our families are buying their own homes, they are getting promotions, they're increasing their education. We are also working with our alumni on individual development accounts for a 4-to-1 match, up to $1,000. So they can put $1,000 in and we will match that 4 times for an asset building program for them to use either for furthering their education, for starting a small business, for buying a home, or starting a small or buying a vehicle. We're also working hard to build, and we're about to kick off a child savings account so that the families in our program will begin saving for their children's post-secondary education early. And we are planning to put in to each child who sets up these accounts for 5 years so that they'll have a pretty good start once they go. The research shows that if you have savings set aside for post-secondary education, you are highly likely to use that. At Suriname, we can serve up to 20 families at a time right now. And since inception 17 years ago, we've served 142 families with 301 children. We can currently bring in 10 families per year. Our current apartment complex that we operate out of has up to 20 family units that we can use. And so we use about half of those to bring in each group, each cohort in the fall to coincide with the beginning of school. We are a very efficient program. We invest deeply in families for 2 years at a cost of about $11,000 per person. When we have done research with UNM's Anderson School of Management, the cost per person to be homeless in Albuquerque is around $42,000 to $50,000, and we're serving a person for 11 or a family for 35 for 2 years, and then they are on their own, independently living and kind of giving back in the community. We have some stories from our alumni that are quite amazing. One of the ones that came in just at the beginning of this month with graduation is one of our alumni sent us a note and said, guess what? I'm graduating with my associate's degree from CNM at the beginning of May, and I'm planning on going to UNM in the fall to start 2 different programs, 2 degree programs. And now I never thought I would be able to do this, but because of Suriname, I know I can do that. You taught me that. So we are really looking at the long-term outcomes of families who are homeless becoming stable citizens of our communities. We have been operating at capacity. You can go to the next slide, please. We have been operating at capacity since 2014, and our capacity is 20 families at a time. And so we have also been planning an expansion since 2015. And our expansion plans include a second site to more than double our capacity. We have purchased a 3.5-acre piece of land just west of Coors and Montano, and are planning to build 25 new family units on there, along with all of the programming and operational space that we need. And here you can see some of the renderings and the site plan for that. It is a $4.5 million campaign. We were supposed to be kicking this capital campaign off last year, but because of COVID, we switched and we really invested in technology so our families could attend classes at their respective schools and their kids could stay online with good, solid internet. And we put off our capital campaign, but we started that this year and we are at 26% of our campaign goal right now. We plan to occupy this in the spring of 2024, so campaign through the end of this year and hopefully the build through 2022 and 3. You can go to the next slide. So this is an opportunity, kind of a double opportunity. So we are putting out that we can, a request for $50,000, which will support a whole family at Suriname for 18 to 24 months, which is about as long as families stay in our program before they plan their exits. Which includes the GED and all of the post-secondary education for adults. It includes really targeted children's programming. We have 3 or 4 nights a week that we are doing academic literacy skills, as well as tutoring life skills that coincide with what the adults are learning, and just having fun, having our families who have been in survival mode for so long learn how to have fun together. And it also supports our alumni programming as well. And then we're also making a request for a $250,000 challenge match for this expansion project to help us build 25 new housing units, a playground, community space, and all of the programming space that actually increases our capacity by 119%. We have seen through the pandemic and heard through many of these presentations, the need is really great, especially for families and children. And we are hoping to meet that need in a really deep way so that families can end that poverty and homelessness and go on to kind of bigger and better things. So thank you so much. Are there questions?
Tracy, thank you so much for your presentation, and certainly love to hear the success stories. Congratulations as far as one of your past residents that's basically off to complete their associates and then on to UNM, University of New Mexico, et cetera. So great stories there. So you have requests here of the 50 and the 250. And in this case, just want to make sure on structure that these are grants that you are asking for, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And also, and this is something that could actually, for the funders that are participating, all of the organizations may, as far as part of the conversation that you may want to have is one of the things from banking side, often think of lines of credit, and as far as if those are necessary or needed by an organization. Would also like to ask in regards to your population, are they basically, would you say from and I can't recall from the proposal, county specific, or are they from surrounding counties? What's makeup of your current families that are coming in, again, from a homeless situation?
So we are located in Albuquerque. So once they're in our program, they're Albuquerque, but
okay.
we do receive applications from around the state, from other organizations that are working with families across the state for families who could relocate to be in our 2-year program. And our applications are actually just about to go live here at the end of the month, and they are due, and they'll be available on our website, which is SurinameABQ.org, and they are due at the end of July. As I said, we are planning on moving 10 new families in mid-August to coincide primarily with the beginning of our Albuquerque public schools. But we can receive applications, referrals from other places in the state, and not just in kind of the 4-county out area here.
Can you speak to subscription as far as application and so forth and demand for services?
Yes, recently we have been receiving about 70 or 80 applications for 10 openings over the last several years. And that's been part of our feasibility work, is to really talk with our referral sources and ask, if we opened an application session in a different time of year, could you send us another 70 or 80? And they're like, absolutely. We have seen we screen for eligibility. We do background checks to kind of screen out really significant safety concerns, sex offenders and such. And then our families in the program do an interview. So our current families in the program actually have a huge voice as to who comes into their community and how that works, as well as our clinical staff. And so at that process, we choose our 10 families, but we do have like 70 to 80 applicants for our 10 openings a year.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So the demand continues. Demand is great.
Yes.
And wonderful that you're looking to increase capacity. All right. Well, Tracy, thank you so much. So Tracy with Suriname. So funders, thank you, Tracy. Funders, if Suriname, if this proposal is of interest or you'd like to learn a little bit more about the organization or the proposal itself, please mark yes on your funder response form as that reminder. And if I could have the next, oh, perfect. So this is my reminder. And first off, thank you to all the presenters for joining us today. And funders, a reminder for you with this slide, if you wouldn't mind. So completing that funder response form. And if you're missing it, we'll make sure, just reach out to us. We'll make sure we get you another response form out to you. And also your evaluations. Your evaluation is important for us to basically know how are we doing. Again, this format is different as far as having the virtual presentations versus the place-based sessions that we've done in the past. But not only about investment connection, if there's things that you'd like to see perhaps different, but all other programs that community development provides or other information that would be helpful for you. So I want to make sure that that's out there. Also, if you've made a funding connection through Investment Connection and don't think we're aware of it, please share it with us. So as you can see there, share your connections. We're always looking for article ideas based on those connections. So please keep us in mind. And just the next slide, please. So in addition to the 8 proposals you heard today, we have hundreds more that are basically available on the Investment Connection Funder site, and hope you'll take a look at those. You pick your geography, your area of focus, your funding support options, and the site will share the proposals that match. So almost like a love match, so to speak. So let me know if you have any questions about the tool. Reach out. We'd be happy to help you work through it, what have you, that search capacity. Again, thank you all for attending today. I hope you came away with more information on organizations that are working in your communities and ways that you may be able to support them. So with that, gave you a little bit of time for the rest of your day. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget that was funder response forums. We are adjourned. So thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it.